Hey, it's Emil. Emil Guillermo, Emil Amok to you. This is my Takeout, Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, live. We actually can break some news, you know. That Trump trial, they're talking only about the damages now, right? The verdict came back, and it's massive against Donald Trump. A jury has ordered Trump to pay E. Jean Carroll in this defamation trial $83.3 million. I hope he has it. I just hope he says he has it. I mean, they took him at his word, right? When Trump said, yeah, I got it. Okay, we'll see. So 83.3, this is just within the last half hour. We're going to bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, who is a JD, but he's also Professor Emeritus, Asian American Studies, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. Professor Emeritus, we'll bring him up in just a second. But I just want to welcome you to our show. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Alabama nitrogen execution that happened yesterday. I mean, no one's talking about it today. And I think we should, because it's going to be a thing. And I don't know if it should be a thing. Killing people for the crime shouldn't be a thing. We'll talk about that. We'll talk more about post-New Hampshire, Haley, her run, what she's doing, how Donald Trump must think what he's doing now. I mean, look, he's going to get he's going to pay out $83.3 million. A court is ordered, a jury has ordered him. I guess he's just going to add it to the tab that he gets out of people who love him. You know, maybe he's going to figure out that it's easier to maybe just have, I mean, since he's acting like he's a cult leader of a church or something, it's just easier to have a Donald Trump religion and raise money that way. Except he wants the power. He doesn't know what to do with the power. He's not very good about it. He's going to be good the second time if he gets in, but he might figure out that maybe it's better to be a church. Better tax benefits. People give you money. Anyway, $83.3 million, that's what the jury has ordered. So we'll bring in Dan to talk about that. We'll talk about, Dan is also a CSU professor emeritus. I want to ask him about the CSU strike that happened this week. All the things that happened this week that are worth talking about. Like, you know, the whole thing with immigration now. Now, is the Senate backing down? Does that mean that the deal that was going to fund the government because they were going to have this money tied in with Ukraine and Israel and border fixes, now because of Trump? See, everything's around Trump. Trump is around everything. But now the Republicans say the deal's off. So we're going to talk about immigration with Dan, about how that deal is impacted. We're going to also talk about some museum stuff. So a lot of news. But let's start with this breaking news. Within the last half hour, the jury found Donald Trump had acted maliciously and persistently attacking E. Jean Carroll, the magazine writer, the former magazine writer. He was found liable of sexually abusing her last year. And now, just today, a Manhattan jury found that Trump, the former president, they ordered him to pay $83.3 million to E. Jean Carroll for defaming her in social media posts, news conferences, and even on the campaign trail ever since she first accused him of 2019 of raping her in a department store dressing room decades earlier. And so let's bring up Daniel Phil Gonzalez, our professor friend and legal maven. He's a scholar, professor emeritus, San Francisco State University, College of Ethnic Studies. Hi, Dan.
Hello there.
So, yeah, so what do you think? Donald Trump awarded 65 in punitive damages, and the balance, like 18 million or so, in compensatory damages. First of all, what's the difference between the compensatory and the punies?
Compensatory is based on actual damages. Actual meaning uh, everything from reputational damage that cost her jobs,
Mm,
maybe a loss of, she's a columnist, right? So,
right.
so she may have lost some gigs. Also, all the way over to psychological damages. Stress, having to go to a shrink,
Mm. So,
medication. That's actual damages. The actual and direct result of the actions of the defamatory uh, individual.
so 18.3 million. Was that a lot? I mean, it seems like a lot, but it could have gone higher, but is it a lot?
They have experts. I'm not an expert in estimating the value of those losses,
Mm.
but they obviously her attorneys, the plaintiff's attorneys, brought out some of the best known experts on what those values are, and that's what the jury decided. They went along with that.
Yeah, the figure that I heard cited during the testimony was 10 to 12 million. So she's got 18.3 in compensatory, but the big number was in the punitive damages, or what people in the law refer to as the punies.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so what is the difference between the punies and the if compensatory damages are the actual damages?
Yeah,
What are the punies? Not
that's
puny, apparently, at
yeah,
60
yeah.
some million dollars.
Punitive is what the puny stands for. Punitive damages, and that there's actually no ceiling on that. There's no measure other than what will it take to punish this person for the actions that he took. How intentional, how knowing of his the harm that he would cause, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so the jury found that he was not only knowing, but he was very intent on causing her reputational harm and maybe even psychological and physical harm. So that's what they went for. And if they decided to go above and beyond even what the plaintiff's attorneys were asking for, well, that's what they felt. Now, the media has been talking about this a lot, and of course, the way they've been casting this discussion is, what will it take to shut this guy up?
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, he keeps coming back. He keeps being
that's
a
the point.
repeat offender. And if he
Yes.
keeps libeling and he keeps mentioning or harming Miss Carroll, then what's a figure that's going to keep him from being sued again? Because I think there's a second suit that's out there.
Yeah. Well,
Carroll is filed a second time.
yeah. Well, as long as he keeps doing this, then they could drag him into court every time he does it.
Yeah. So, all
I
right.
mean,
So these punitive damages are 66. The total for all damages are 83.3 million.
yep.
66 or so, 65 million or so in the punitive damages, and 18 million in the compensatory damages. Now, Trump wasn't in the courtroom; he stormed out. But what is he going to? I mean, does he have any recourse here? Does he can't? Can
Yeah,
he
he can
appeal?
appeal. He,
Yeah.
he can appeal. He can slow the thing down again. But the likelihood, I mean, it's already been up. The earlier case went up on appeal, and the courts favored the district judge position. So this is going to go the same way. Even even if it goes up on appeal, and there's different panels of judges. They sometimes they'll have as few as three. Sometimes they'll sit and en banc, and meaning everybody
Whole
that's
court. Yeah.
on that court. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this instance, they'll probably just do the panel, and they'll just reiterate what was said the first time around.
But
So
see, here's the thing about Trump. Trump is Mr. Delay, right? He never wants to pay. He'll
sure,
fight until he
sure.
has to pay. How long can he string us all along? How long can he avoid paying E. Jean Carroll?
It depends on how clearly he's violating the decision by this jury and the agreement of the judge
Mhm.
for enforcement. Okay, and so he's already stalled on the first payment out. And what I would do is, if I were the plaintiff's counsel, is I would seize some property. I would go ahead and go to the court, say that this guy is stalling, he's avoiding his responsibility as ordered by the court and as found by the jury, and therefore we need to seize some property. That's what I would do. I mean,
Yeah,
this is why should people who are found to be arrears on a mortgage, right?
yeah,
Why and then they suffer at least a mechanic's lien, right, against their property by the bank.
yeah,
And if they go 90 days beyond, the bank gets to seize the property.
yeah,
So why should Donald Trump get away with delaying and delaying and delaying when it's been, since
yeah.
the first try? Yeah.
And, and clearly he has the money. I mean, he said in other court depositions that he's got several hundred million. He may not cop to a billion, but he said he had several hundred million that he could afford. I think he mentioned that in a deposition for another case, and the attorneys, brought it forward in this case to say, hey, he's got the money, but he's got the money, and he also has the will to continue to defame Miss Carroll. Recently he wrote 40 derisive posts about E. Jean Carroll in his Truth Social website. So, is 83 million? Is that going to be enough to make, number one, Donald Trump stop, and number two, make Donald Trump pay?
No, it's not. It's not going to be enough. I mean, uh, a couple of years ago, when it was still Twitter,
Mhm.
I said arrogance and stupidity are not defenses. Okay, they're not criminal defenses. Insanity is, and he is definitely proving out, right, the possibility that he might have to go with an insanity defense in some of these instances,
Yeah,
and because his behavior is pretty clearly not in self-interest. I mean, there's no way that you consider his behavior in his best own self-interest,
yeah,
you know, and that goes across the board. So we're going to see more of this in other cases, especially the criminal cases. He's gonna behave exactly the way he does. He is a victim of his own compulsion. And
yeah,
now I'm not a psychologist, right? I'm not a psychiatrist, but there are a whole lot of psychologists and psychiatrists that called his number before he even got elected.
yeah,
Okay, and it's so easy to see, but now people are saying, well, all these people that are continuing to vote for him and are taking a hard line position, why are they still there? And the answer is, first of all, they denied everything that goes against him, so they don't accept any of that stuff as fact. Okay,
yeah.
and now psychiatrists and psychologists saying he's their avatar. That's who they identify with. He is their avatar. And I felt that way. I have felt that way even before Trump ran for election. They
Yeah.
see certain people as their avatar. For a while, John McCain was their avatar. Not a bad avatar. Not somebody that I agreed with, politically, but he certainly was not an extreme right conservative.
Yeah.
He was kind of a traditional conservative. Uh,
Yeah.
but he was the avatar for the Republican Party, or one segment of the Republican Party, for a period of time. Now, Ronald Reagan, since he was governor of the state of California, was an avatar for the Republican Party. They have now destroyed that that
Yeah.
avatar. They have completely
Yeah.
demolished that avatar, and so now you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene as an avatar? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Lauren Boebert,
yeah.
grab me here, Boebert, as an avatar. That's
Yeah.
that's what they've got. They've got Johnson, another one. I mean,
Yeah.
how many stupid Johnsons do there have to be for
Yeah.
people to have
Well,
Ron Johnson
this
as a
is the thing
senator?
about this is the thing about the grand old party. It's no longer grand, It is an old
It
party,
is old.
yeah, but it's not a great party. And you know, I think the this speaks to the allure of Trump. He still feels he's above the law. I mean, he doesn't like rules. He doesn't like restrictions. He doesn't think that anything applies to him. We all know people like that. In fact, there's parts of us that are maybe just like that. And that's why there's some sane people who have more self-control who might seem like they like Trump because that's the guy they wish they were. You know, or he's
There it
acting
is.
in a way that they would like to, but they won't because they're not that type of person. They're more mature. They're more uh, responsible. They're more, you know, they're more intelligent. They're more, you know, they understand the Constitution. But Trump is like, oh, forget it. It's like it's all extreme selfishness to the point of self destruction. And I don't know. I was saying earlier that 83 million, he's just going to fundraise off all those people who feel that way about him. He's going to say, look at me. They put me on the cross. You got 83 million, give it to me and I'll pay off this damn woman. And then we'll go after her. That's what, well, and see, that's the thing. People will listen to him. And that's the danger about someone who feels he's above the law.
Well,
And
how long do you see? He's already made some racial references, right? Thinly veiled racial references.
about Eugene Carroll.
No, about Haley.
Oh yeah, about Haley. Yes, yes, yes. And well, he's a misogynist, so that covers E. Jean Carroll too. I
Yeah,
mean,
but you know, I think he has a more difficult time. Yeah, going after Eugene Carroll
mhm,
was, I don't know, easier from his point of view. If
yeah,
you take into consideration his "she's not my type"
yeah.
kind of position, you know, and then and
See,
they play
he
back the video of him
well,
misidentifying her as his
oh yeah,
wife.
as Marla Maples. You know, this is the thing about Trump. You know, back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s, and you know, I, this was sadly the way misogynistic America was like. This is what sexist America was like. And I think Trump's value is we see that you can't be this sexist and racist anymore. You can't in civil society, and I think that's what Trump is challenging. That, oh, what do you mean? I could be as sexist and racist as I want. No, you can't. You can't be that sexist. You can't be that racist. And you know he has a small cadre, maybe a third of the American public, who are nostalgic for those times that they say, "Go get him, Donald. Speak for us. You're our person." And I think that's what's taking him on, unfortunately. And it's up to everyone else who says, "Oh, wait a minute. We're evolving in this country, in this society. We're no longer 80-20 white to everyone else. We're now more mixed. We're more diverse. We're different in America now." And so all the stuff that people,
You know, I think there's a substantial minority of people that feel that way and that
yeah,
accept the reality that American society is diverse.
yeah,
But they've done away. The court has done away with the word diverse because
yeah,
that was the essential argument, you know, in the Harvard case, the Harvard
affirmative
affirmative
action.
action case,
Yeah,
and so they did away with that. I have always been against the diverse argument for the same reasons that I criticized the multicultural description of
yeah,
liberalistic, right, acceptance of the differences among cultures in American society. That
yeah,
multiculturalism said we all get to celebrate our ethnicities. We can have
yeah,
our kids come to school, and the Jewish kids can spin a dreidel,
yeah.
and the Chinese kids can do a little
Like,
bit of dragon or lion dance,
right.
and you know, the Spanish kids can come in and sing those colores, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was
It's a one
all
big. We're
tokenism.
one big. Yeah, we're
Yes,
one big
tokenism. It was
mixed race.
It was freaky tokenism. It was like a fake pizza. You know,
Yeah, but it acknowledges our differences and it brings us together.
no, it didn't
It
bring us
really
together.
relies on us to be
It brought
frugal
a
and
bunch of people. It did not bring us together. What it did was legitimize the difference. It just
yeah.
said it's real. It did not bring
All
us
right.
together.
So,
Bringing us
so wait,
together means that people recognize the value of each other's culture. Okay, beyond the food,
yeah,
beyond
yeah,
tacos and sorta tacos,
yeah,
and beyond, like my friends, Filipino friends say, beyond lumpia and pancit, right?
yeah.
Beyond the basics, and that's what we lack. We lack that depth. So, what provides that depth is ethnic studies. Okay, and now ethnic
Yeah.
studies, at least at SF State, has ethnic studies has been in existence for 55 years, right? Ever since 1969,
Hmm.
and the Republican Party wants to wipe it out. They call it CRT. The reality is they're out to wipe out ethnic studies in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And the first major decision in that direction was actually an Arizona decision that outlawed Mexican American studies in Tucson,
Yeah.
and it was upheld. That position was upheld by the appellate court here in the Ninth Circuit. I was shocked by that. I had to review their decision and the rationale for their decision over and over again, because the major argument in that case was that Mexican American studies divided people on the basis of race, and the reason they that was being argued was it makes people think that white people are guilty of racism. Okay, and
Right.
that
Well,
means that
yeah.
that creates tension against white people. The children become embarrassed at school. It may even raise
Yeah.
physical
Well,
confrontation.
that was always a CRT argument that, oh, well, you're going to talk about the reality. You're going to be critical of America. We can't be critical of America. We can't have Americans, white Americans be racist. So, that was that gave the momentum to the anti-ethnic studies, type of movement in Florida, in places like that, in CRT,
Well, how
because,
about the book banning? I
oh
mean,
yeah, yeah,
that's beyond Florida. That's
yeah,
you've got places where all over the country, probably about 35 states,
mm,
give or take, one or two states where a parent, a
yeah,
parent can come forward before a school board and say, "I'm offended by that book," and they
yeah,
pull the damn book off the not only off the school shelf, but out of the library, the local library as well.
yeah.
And that's been going on incessantly, right?
Well,
And
all right. So,
the local courts have upheld those actions. So now, you know, 2 years ago when I did the large classes, okay, one of the things that I emphasized was, look, this is what happened during the McCarthy era, right? I covered it. This is what happened during the McCarthy era, and whenever you see these signs, you got to worry about the rise of McCarthy-like circumstances. Okay, now even before Trump, right, there were already people who were contesting content.
right.
So in California, good old liberal California, right? People
Yeah.
were saying, look, the next time we have history books developed for K through 12, we got to look at the history content, some coverage of the reality of the experience of people of color, right? Now, my position was that's great, but it's going to be an encyclopedic text, man, because
Yeah.
there's too many people of different backgrounds in the state of California. So how are we going to cover that? How is it
Well,
possible that
look,
you're
all
going to
right,
fit all that?
all right. Look, we got into this discussion of the books away from the Trump thing, but the reason why Trump is so popular is because he does represent the people who are against,
That's right.
ethnic studies, against knowing how diverse America is,
They
and
they want a reinforcement of whiteness and the superiority of whiteness, and they want a reinforcement of misogyny. Want to keep
and
women down, want to keep people of color down. It's that simple, and it's that ugly. And it's very difficult to teach that in any kind of objective fashion. I hope you understand.
well, and this is why you need the history. This is why you need the facts of what happened. I mean, just today, right? The museums, the natural history museums, are saying, look, we're going to stop showing these Native American artifacts that were not taken, ethically. They're going to shut down the halls. They're not going to show them. And these are sacred objects. This is something that the Biden administration is pushing, but that museums are embracing, and it's about time, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, no, they have been doing this. Actually, the positive news on that is that many museums
right?
have been doing these kinds of things and returning objects. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
foreign objects. They've been returning those, and
Asia,
yep,
yeah,
Asia, Latin America, Africa. They've been
it,
doing it, and to their credit, you know.
yeah.
So
It makes sense. I mean, you could still study the history without robbing and raping the cultures,
that's
and
right.
and if you get to the history, then you understand that there's only one thing you can do if you find yourself with these sacred objects, and that is to return them
That's right.
to
That's right.
to
The
the
problem is the black market of fate.
yeah.
Black market for privately held
Right.
items.
Well, that's true. Like the story the 60 Minutes did about all the Asian artifacts and Asian art. But I mean, this is part of the coming to grips with the history, the racist and sexist
Yeah, yeah.
history that we have, and it means that we're going to be in a new world. And Donald Trump is a representation of the people who like the old world. Hey, we like it the way it was. We like it.
Well, yeah, of course. Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the definitions of conservatism.
Yeah. Oh
You know,
yeah. Well.
that's one of the basic conservative character. And if you look it up from not only a political perspective but a sociological and a psychological perspective, it's number one a resistance to change,
Yeah.
and number two a demand to protect the old way of looking at things, the old worldview,
Well.
which they call it traditional. See,
Yeah.
because
Well, now look.
saying that it's tradition, right,
Yeah.
kind of it gives it the glow, right, of something important and proper,
Or
like
sacred that should
Christmas.
be returned to. We should return. We should uphold this.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and that's originalism, right, as
Yeah.
practiced by the courts.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. We mentioned we're going to talk about immigration,
Yep.
but I always like to mention this: how the conservatives were always the original open border folks,
Yes,
because
that's right.
how can you be free market economic on
That's
economics?
right.
How can you be, for that openness and then close on the borders? It's all got to be free market. It's all got to be free. It's all got to be open. It's got to be open borders. And the conservatives, like William F. Buckley, they were like, it was like the leading the charge. The conservative William F. Buckley from Yale, the Mister, he'd hold up his glasses, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, so arrogant, but he
not,
was
not
an
not when
open,
he had Gore Vidal on. When he had Gore
right,
Vidal
right.
on,
Well, then he
he's
gets,
rather more animated.
yeah. But the point about Buckley is that he was Mr. Open Borders and Mr. Conservative, and that's completely the opposite view
He
now.
was, yeah. I think one. Let me. I'll hand you a word. Erudite. He was an
Oh yeah, yeah.
erudite, traditional conservative, a true conservative, and that's why Vidal was willing to go on his show. Is because Vidal was the avatar for liberal philosophy at the time, right? And
Among
uh,
other things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, anyway, so all right, so I think we're finished talking about Trump. He's probably gonna pay the 83.3 million. He's
Well,
gonna fight it. All right, how about this? Let me ask this exit question on Trump. Is
they
it
got
going
to
to be
grab his property. You got to
yeah,
grab him by the property. So
yeah.
I
Grab
want
him by
enforcement.
the
There has to be ready enforcement, and one of the ways that you can really get it done is seize some property. And he's got property all over New York, man. So just
get a couple of golf courses.
yeah, yeah.
Move They should move a few thousand migrants away from those hotels in New York City and move them to the 18 holes out there in his golf properties. He can set up tent cities, and it would be great. It's an open space.
Right? Yeah. Yep.
I mean, why? I mean, it's more valuable as residencies for these migrants than for uh, for residents. I mean, than for people playing golf.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I would love that. I would I would love it, especially those communities that are built right around the golf course.
yeah,
They can essentially walk onto a green any time of the day and say, "Okay, I'm going to play these 3 holes
yeah,
because they're in my backyard." They
yeah.
can do that, and then it would be so cool if you put tents out there, and
And
within the view of those properties, right?
yeah, and they can make maybe they can make money as caddies. They can set up the tents there. I like that idea. That Donald Trump has a lot of property there, but that would be a way of paying back and solving the border issue that he refuses. Now, here's the thing. Before we get to the border issue and Trump, do you think Donald Trump is going to raise? He's going to raise money to try to offset the 83 million, right?
Sure, sure. And there's people out there that
Yeah,
will send them money. I mean, I wonder if they had to sacrifice like sending money to evangelical TV
yeah.
ministers, and then instead send that towards Trump. Is it an either or situation, or did they just split the difference and go 50-50?
Well, I don't know. He's going to fight for every penny that he's not going to give away.
Well,
Half.
a few weeks ago, it was really embarrassing. He was almost begging a few
Yeah,
weeks ago.
yeah. Well,
The I'm a victim thing.
oh well, yeah. This is the thing about him being being ordered to pay 83.3 million because he'll immediately use it as I'm a victim, right?
Mhm.
This is going to be I'm a
These are the
victim.
courts coming after me unfairly. It's the
Yeah,
deep state. The
yeah.
deep state.
I hope people see through this, but do you think this is going to have an impact
Well, the good
on?
news is, Emil, that a majority of Americans do see through it. Okay, the question is how much of that majority still support Trump in spite of the fact that they see through it. Because I truly believe there are people who are so nasty that they know what Trump is, exactly what he is, but they want to ride that horse. They he's their avatar, good
Yeah,
or bad. They don't care
yeah.
about the morals or the ethics or
Right.
any of that stuff.
Right. I did a thing in one of my shows. I said, I was talking about why one person, my father, was likely to have backed Trump. It's because Trump was, he wants the bad. My dad wants the badass. He wants to ride the badass, and Trump's the badass.
Oh man.
And of course, I said it in a Filipino accent.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's why Donald Trump is so popular among certain people because they don't have to be the badass. They can just
He's the top guy, huh? He's the
yeah,
top guy.
picked up guy. Yeah.
He's
That,
like just like Marcos.
yeah.
Marcos, huh? 20
Marcos
years,
talks that.
20 years of power. That's right. What
Yeah.
do you mean? Kidney, nothing. Look at this. I can still lift. I'm doing, huh?
Yeah.
Look at my reps with these dumbbells, huh? Huh?
See
Do
now,
I look like
now,
I'm weak, huh?
see now, you and I, we know that video that Marcos put out showing him bare chested and
Right
lifting
before
weight.
he fucking croaked.
Yeah. But now, how many people would know that? I was listening to a sports show today, and someone said some guy named Craig Morton owns this
Oh God.
quarterback record, and the person didn't know who Craig Morton was.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
Craig Morton,
That
and
is a while back, man.
I
I
know,
mean,
but Denver Broncos before Elway, but also before the Broncos, UC Berkeley,
that's right. He was a Berkeley guy. Hmm.
big game.
Yeah,
I mean, in fact, he's just like uh, what's his name, Goff. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Came out of the Bay Area, went to Berkeley. Yeah, he's from Marin, right? He was a
yeah, he went to
Marin
Marine
Catholic.
Yeah, the Detroit Lions quarterback. What's his first name again? Goff. I just know him as Goff.
Uh, fuck, I forget.
Yeah, I know. It slipped my mind. He's just Goff. I don't. I forget his number. Anyway, Goff. He went to Marin, and he's a Berkeley guy. Berkeley guy. So
That's right.
go Bears, I guess. All right. So
Yeah, but
on to
yeah,
Trump.
I had a decal that said that, but I cut the A and the E
Yeah.
and stuck them together in the middle, so it was put the R in the middle, so it was go bear, like naked.
Oh, go Bear. Oh,
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's funny. That's funny.
yeah.
That's go Bear. All right. All right. So let's move on to immigration because Trump's power in immigration. You know, it's extending to Congress, even though he's not in
He's
office.
not there. It just
But
takes a phone call.
yeah,
He does a phone call and he puts something up on Truth Social,
yeah,
and these guys very robotically, bend over and say, "How far do I have to bend for you?"
yeah.
For
I
you
mean, I think it's ridiculous. We haven't had comprehensive immigration reform
That's what
since.
a federal judge has said now. It's all ridiculous. It was on a different issue, but
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
said these guys are preposterous. His words was preposterous.
So but it doesn't sound like they're backing down I mean, it sounds like they aren't going to go through it. That the deal for a border compromise that Biden wants, plus uh, you know uh, aid to Ukraine and Israel bundled up in a package. It sounds like that's threatened now, which is really sad because we could start solving a lot of issues now, but Trump wants it as a campaign issue. He wants to run on these things against the Democrats, which
Well,
I find to
don't
be
forget, I
immoral.
want the economy to fail part
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Once the See, I find all that immoral. I find that how can you be a leader? In which,
Yeah, geez, Emil, is it immoral and unethical? Oh my God, is that really happening at all? The word morality has no meaning, when you talk about the Republican Party and not just Trump, but the whole friggin' party. That's what makes it so difficult to teach this stuff.
yeah.
Because if you just put the facts up and say, well, this is where we're heading, this
Yeah.
is this is the Constitution, and these are the things that are now at issue from the Constitution, and they're essential. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about stuff that sounds like we're having a conversation in 17 friggin' 87.
Yeah.
It
You know,
doesn't sound like a conversation that we're having more than 2 centuries later.
see, the thing is, this is what makes Trump so historical because under normal circumstances, with normal people would act in a responsible, sane way. They would protect the Constitution. They would think about the greater good of the country, and they wouldn't do these stupid, self-serving things that now people who have sat on their hands and done nothing, they see Trump do this and they say, wow, well, he could do that. I can do that. And then that's, from, in every endeavor, that's what people see. And if Trump gets away with it and isn't held accountable, then we're in real trouble in this democracy because that's the whole thing about even in this defamation, the civil suit that now he's ordered to pay 83.3 million. If he doesn't pay, man, I mean, people are trying to hold the rule of law is trying to hold Donald Trump accountable, and he is saying now before he gets reelected, he's saying I'm above it all.
Yep.
I'm above it all, and it's
And the people who hold him up as their avatar are saying, yes, not only is he above it all, we are above it all. They want to be able to behave accordingly.
yeah, and that's the problem. That's the
There
problem.
it is. And see,
Um,
what people don't want to accept as well, those all of us who are at least cognizant of the fact that Mr. Trump represents a tendency towards fascism, and authoritarianism. They still have not accepted the fact that those who are earnest in their commitment to him, and they continue to be, that element in American society is a persistent element. It
yeah,
exists all throughout the history of this country,
yeah,
and like elements, like factors, exist throughout all societies, particularly those that are relatively democratic. In other words, where there actually is a meaning to majority and there's a meaning to the voting process, right? It's kept clean and it's reflective of what actually happened at the voting poll. The
yeah,
only thing that interferes with that in American society is the relationship between the electoral college, right, and the state's sovereignty around the way that they do voting, right,
yeah. Yeah,
which in and of itself is problematic.
yeah. I mean, I'm just worried now, even more about what's going to happen. I mean, well, a lot we'll tell a lot by Trump's reaction. We don't know his reaction yet. I'm sure Maggie Haberman says in a little on the New York Times blog, she says how she doesn't really know how Trump is going to react. I think her line is, let's see, let's get to her line. What is her line? She says, it's hard to express how angry Trump is going to be about this, you know. And I think that might be one of the first major explosions, right, out of a legal case that might give people a view of, is this the guy we want to be president? I hope, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things about Nikki Haley running again is, or continuing to run despite losing by 11 points, is that she continues to bait Trump, and we get to see in real time how Trump reacts. It's not good. It's not presidential. It's not really complimentary. But everything that Haley does that Trump reacts to, plus everything that happens out of this trial and all the other trials, should give people a sense that not, oh, I want to vote for that man. People should be saying, oh, wow. Uh, it should be like smelling salts. It, it should be the smelling salts that wake people up, right?
Yeah. I think that's true for maybe independents and some right-leaning Democrats, and but that's about it. That hardcore pro-Trump element is just going to be there. They're going to continue to be there. I remember after Richard Nixon resigned and then was pardoned,
Mhm.
people were still saying we want Dick, and I'm assuming they're talking about Nixon. But yeah, they were cheering in front of the White House
Mhm.
before he took the helicopter ride of fame, right? Between the "I'm not a crook" speech, right? That's right, and his departure, again flashing peace signs, right?
Yeah.
They said he's our man, and so even after all of that, right, there was support for Nixon. As Tricky Dick, as we used to call him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so he was the beginning of a lot of this stuff, right? Of this movement of outright denial, and let's he in his interview, 10 years later with David Frost, he said if the president does it, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. I
so,
mean, we're gonna we're gonna have to see how this evolves, but things are evolving. What do you think about the New Hampshire primary? Trump
well,
didn't win as big.
yeah,
Didn't win as big.
New Hampshire is very conservative.
Yeah.
There are probably more independents at New Hampshire by far than Iowa, right? So
Yeah.
so that's where the hope for Haley was. It was independents and Democrats who would be willing to vote in open primary for her, right? So that's where she got her help. But I think it was rather predictable that Trump was going to come out double digits ahead.
Yeah. But not
But
as
twelve
much.
percent, 12% down ain't bad though. I mean
Yeah.
that's not bad, and that there's a lot of analysis going on about breaking down Trump's actual vote. What are the
Right.
characteristics of the voters?
Yeah.
And and one of the interesting polls, and I don't know who conducted that poll, but I really like the fact that they went this far down, granular, right? They asked, would you vote for Trump if he was convicted of anything? And in one poll, it said 35% said
Oh
no.
yeah. A lot. Yeah. A lot of people. And you get to sentiments like that, like people who still will vote for Trump despite the convictions, and then you get people who are Haley supporters who are saying they would never vote for Trump, which means there may be enough people out there
Yep,
to join the Democrats.
yep.
Um, so we'll see. I'm glad she's still running because, as I point out in my ALDEF column,
Yeah, I just read that too.
aaldf.org/blog. Yeah. I just think that the more she's out there, the more she helps expose Trump. If people see the real Trump, we don't have to see the real Trump in the White House.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he ought to be. If he really wants our vote, well, maybe he'll learn to be on good behavior. But he wasn't on good behavior in the courtroom,
Right.
and
Well,
he's
and neither was MTG. She came out saying, I don't know if she was echoing Trump or if Trump echoed her.
oh
But she said, all you people that went out there and voted for Haley, you're not welcome. You're not welcome in MAGA anymore.
oh yeah yeah.
We're gonna excommunicate you. In essence, from MAGA. And you know what I was saying? I said, right on, Marge. Just keep on saying that stuff because it's the incredible shrinking party.
It is. It is. I mean, that's all they want to be is really the fringe party. Unfortunately, that's what they want to be. They want to be that.
I wish you hadn't used that because it reflects on French theater a little bit, and
I know. Well, it's just people on the margins,
yeah.
but they're the
I
white
would call
people.
them I would call them the outlier or outrigger party.
The outrigger. Okay. All right. All right.
Outrigger is so fitting, right? Because
Yeah.
they're the ones who rig all elections. They're the
Yeah.
ones who do, who do, and then they're pointing the finger like a little bunch of sick ass little fourth graders, right?
But it is
I
so
know
the
I
outrigger.
know I am, but what are you?
But the outrigger is that's a very
I
islandy.
like it. I like it. I like. Well, it's kind of Pacific Islander and
Yeah.
Southeast Asian.
Yeah. All right. All right. So Haley is going to run. I think she lasts till Super Tuesday, but I don't hold out. I
Yeah,
mean, she is funded by the Kochs,
yeah,
the
yeah,
Koch brothers. So
yeah. Somebody dropped out. One of her funders backed out. I can't remember. It's a hyphenated last name, but anyway, yeah.
yeah,
One of her big time funders dropped out, but she's got a month before South Carolina, and that's her home state. It ain't going to be good for her in
yeah.
South
Not she's
Carolina.
not doing too well there. Well,
Yeah.
let's see. We'll see. I mean, like I said, she keeps banging against banging on Trump and Trump is hurt. I mean, let's see what her response is to the $3.3 million award that Trump has to pay E. Jean Carroll. So, all right, so let's switch gears. Another topic that happened last week that you are you know something. I mean, you're a CSU professor. The CSUs went on strike for one day. They were going to go on strike for up to five,
That's right.
and
A full working week. That was the
and
plan.
they and a one day thing they got the 5% from the CSU. Is it enough? I mean, I was a member
Well,
of CFA when I was
it's the
there.
old. It's the old. We're going to cycle it in over a period of 3 years, right? It's the
Yeah.
old 5.5 and then 2.5. So it ends up being, or when you aggregate it, what they were asking for, which was 12. Now, the background is the typical background. It's the same old game, right? They have the system will not grant any agreements with a union that's longer than 3 years. I can recall in the distant past we were looking at 5-year contracts, right?
Mhm.
And we thought it over and said, well, wait a minute, in an inflationary period, a 5-year period, may work against us. So we may want to compromise and do these for 3-year contracts. So on the one hand, you're looking for stability over the longest period of time, and on the other hand, you're trying to anticipate the possibility that things might change economically that would put you in a worse position, right? Without being able to change. Now, our union has been really reasonable. They did a 3-year contract, and it came up for review. We knew it was coming, that it would happen in 73. I'm sorry, 23, and we also knew that the likelihood is we're going to have this discussion during the summer. When everybody's not in full tilt boogie in the semester system, and so the usual game happened. Right, there was an impasse between the two parties, and we have an agreement that when there's an impasse, you call in a mediator, and the mediator found that there was no ability to agree. And so it moved over to the final offer kind of position. CSU offered 5%, and the CFA said that's not enough. There's a lot in this, the demands, and a lot of it was not about age old faculty like myself at the senior levels. A lot of it was about attracting more faculty and also keeping lecturers, because lecturers really do a big service to the system, and because they're lower cost, okay, but at the same time, they take care of the large uh, supernumerary numbers of sections that you have to fulfill basic requirements, general education requirements, and for entering freshmen and transfer juniors. So they're really important to the system, but it's hard to hire them because of the cost of living. And the COL in California is so freaking high; they can't afford stuff. And now, one way that some of the
Yeah.
campuses, particularly SF State, tried to deal with that was they gave people a year to 2 years of lower cost housing. Okay, and the way they were able to do that was by purchasing apartment buildings on and near the campus, right
For
across the street
faculty?
from
For
the campus.
faculty?
Yeah, for students and faculty, so that
Mm.
they could rent to both, and you know, yeah. So that's what happened, and now administrators had even a sweeter package. I mean, they would have all of their housing costs taken care of. For my recollection, is 2 years
Yeah.
from the first 2 years that they were there, and they had pretty cushy digs for those 2 years.
I mean, but basically, all right. So there's some things that were good about this 1 day agreement, but they're still kind of kicked the can down the road, and they didn't get everything.
No, they didn't.
They
Yeah,
didn't
it was
get.
a compromise. It was a compromise position.
You know,
I think uh, I was in doubt about the timing anyway. I understood why it had to happen because of the impasse
mm,
after the required attempts to negotiate during the past summer. But just last month, right there was an announcement that California is in a severe budgetary crisis, right, and we're going to have to dip into the rainy day fund that was an invention of the last Jerry Brown administration, right? And
well,
he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. I mean, we were really critical of Jerry Brown in his first term because he froze state salaries. People don't remember that, right? But he took executive action to freeze state salaries. So for several years, more than about 4 years, we did not get a raise during the most inflationary period in American history, and that's between 76 and 81, right?
yeah.
So we were really upset. I mean, he was really great on most other issues, and he was doing a lot of things on the humanitarian side, right, including protecting AIM Defendants, right, the American Indian Movement Defendant, that kind of stuff, and trying to protect education, which was one of his father's great achievements. But his father was only a one-term,
Yeah.
governor, unfortunately.
Well, I'm just, it got some play in the news. I was in LA, and, um, 1 day, uh, they were on strike, and then it was over, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't get everything they wanted, but
Well,
when
and
will
the
the next
bottom line
strike?
is you don't want to hurt students. The bottom
Yeah.
line is you don't want to hurt students, and
Yeah.
that's another thing that bothers me is that this always gets passed on to the students in the form of raising tuition, right?
Right. Right. And we know how tough it is for students. Some students living out of cars,
Yeah,
living, I mean,
I don't know if it
yeah.
was happening while you were there the last time you taught on
But
campus,
yeah,
but yeah, do you remember all of those the
the
RVs?
buses. Yeah. I remember the buses and the RVs along,
Yeah, miles. I mean, all the way down Buckingham Way, all the way over to Lake Merced Boulevard, and halfway to Daly City.
yeah.
Both
No,
sides of the street.
I just couldn't believe it that but the housing crisis is real for students, and if the faculty isn't getting what it needs, students, and if the buck's being passed to the students to pay more in tuition, they're certainly not getting what they need. I mean, it just seems like a broken system that could use an infusion of dollars from somewhere.
From the state. It has to be the state. It has to be the state, and the only way we can do that is by raising taxes on somebody. The last time we made any kind of movement, even when it wasn't necessarily to raise costs of business directly, but an
Mm,
incidental rise in cost of business for insurance companies, way back in the 70s, when no fault legislation was being pushed.
mm.
The big insurance companies said, "Well, we're going to leave the state." And I was involved in discussions with my cohort at law school, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think they should go. I think they should leave the state." I said, "Let's get real. California has got the most highways and the most roads with the most cars and the most people. Okay, so they want to leave the state. They're going to leave that market. You go ahead and do that. Okay, and it's going to leave it wide open for somebody else to step in. If there's an Arizona or a Nevada or an Oregon independent insurance company, they're going to move right in and cover some people. They won't cover everybody, but they'll cover some people that satisfy their requirements. And they may say you can't have had any accidents in the last 3 years, no collisions whatsoever. They could come up with some reasonable requirements, right? To
All right, so you're thinking that you could raise
practice
taxes,
against the major corporations,
yeah,
right?
and
And then, like Tesla, they'll leave. Well, I'm glad Tesla left.
yeah,
Look at it now. And then, people are all of a sudden feel, yeah, California's got the most Teslas, right, as anywhere, and the Bay Area especially. And I think a lot of those people now feel like they've been taken. The recalls
oh yeah, the
on
recalls
on
and
the cars.
charging.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
know,
how far can you go in your car?
sure, there it is, the
The
range
next
thing.
broken charger.
No, I've always been, and all of my buddies that were car freaks, right? That still have a lot of the old gassers and stuff, that they trot out every once in a while,
Yeah,
the just for the kicks of it. They all got the hybrids,
yeah.
which is obviously the way to go. I mean, you get the range, you get
Security, safety. Yeah,
yeah, and also just a lot lower freaking pollution factor and all the rest of that stuff,
yeah.
But so
I
for
mean,
the time being, that's the way to go.
yeah. It's not total. I mean, because you're using
No,
some fossil fuels, but in terms of living your life and the anyway. All right. So, all right, CSU strike. Well, it'll probably come up again sometime in the next 5 years, right?
well, in the next 3 years, yeah,
3 years. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I was a member of that union for a brief period as a lecturer, but I didn't know enough about what was going on right now. I know I did not feel well paid,
hell no.
and you know,
Lecturers are not well paid. There's the A range is really low, and they have an A, B, C, D range, and lecturers typically get hired at best around A3 or A4. So you're
yeah,
not at the absolute bottom. But you
uh,
know who is they hired A2 and A3 are people who
grad
have recently gotten their master's degrees and are still working on campus, and they're former master's degree students that were just TAs, right?
right, right.
So, and you
So
saw what happened with the UC system. The TAs came out and had their strike,
yeah,
and they've had those issues since the last time that I held down a couple of courses at Berkeley. That was '92, and then at Davis in '94, and they had those issues then.
yeah,
We're talking 30 years, dude.
yeah. I know. I mean, it's always it's never you can strike. They can compromise. It just never seems to be enough. Uh,
Well,
you
and the big reason is Proposition 13, number one,
know,
and number two, the unwillingness of conservatives, both Democrats and Republicans, to reform Proposition 13.
Right. And
Proposition
that,
13 needs to be reformed in favor of protecting residential property while taxing corporate, especially large corporation property.
because
You know, like
right
the
now
C
they
of A, the
tax.
Transamerica Building, Wells Fargo, Standard Oil, all those.
Yeah. I mean, because right now Prop 13 protects older owners and taxes newer owners.
That's true.
But it also puts a lid on how much. I mean, the other way to look at it is it puts a lid on how much older people, because it was a revolt by senior um, older homeowners who didn't want their taxes raised, while they were on fixed incomes.
Yeah,
So
well, they were complaining. I don't know if I'd call it a revolt, but what happened was a Southern California group, right, organized
Jarvis,
by Gann,
Jarvis, Jarvis Gann, Harvard,
Jarvis
Harvard.
Gann Initiative, right?
Yeah,
They saw the opportunity to harness a pro-business tax proposition to the protection of residential property, and they sold it to the public as a protection not only of seniors, but of the accessibility, the availability of single home ownership for future generations. And I thought, boy, is that a ton of elephant stuff, man. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, but
talk about
it worked though. I mean,
it
and
worked. Yes, it worked, and that's the
people
problem.
can't
Once that
repeal.
it was an initiative. It
Uh,
was an initiative. The wording worked, right? The
mm,
seniors were protected, but I said, here's the problem. Are the seniors going to be able to live in that property for the rest of their lives, or are they going to have to sell it because they can't maintain that independence? If and when that occurs, okay, and they sell the property, they have now lost, right? That tax break. They don't
yeah,
have it anymore. And so the only way you can protect the tax break, right, is to sell at a nominal price, you know, to your relatives, to your children if you have any, or other relatives if you don't have kids. That's the only way you can protect that. Okay. So now you said exactly the right thing, that older homeowners, right, or older you the better way to say it is older property owners, right,
right,
are
right,
protected. Now, remember 1976 was the key year, right? All the way up till 76, no no expansion on your fair market value. So your market value stays the same, okay, if you've had that property since before 1976. Okay, so when
right.
I say that corporations benefited from that, what do I mean? Okay, well, when was the Bank of America building built? If it was built before 76,
Yeah,
they get that advantage. Transamerica building, Standard Oil, they got like two or three buildings down there, right? So Wells Fargo, right? All of the big PG&E for that matter, right? All these companies, and they all get the treatment as though they were elder residential property owners who owned the property before 1976.
so they
That's one
yeah,
of the big things. That's one of the big reasons that the state is underfunded, is because they get away with how about the big agricultural owners,
right.
you know?
Hell yeah, yeah. Well, this is the thing. The corporates have it their way, and even though the Democrats are in charge now, the
Yeah, but
corporates, the Reagan, the
you know what
corporates.
they're afraid of? They're afraid of the same thing that Republicans are afraid of, and that is the extreme right voter, because it's the rural element in American society. In California, it's the
Yeah,
rural versus the urban and suburban. That's
right.
what
It's
it is.
all those people up to the northeast of the state, above Reading and
Well, it goes
Chico.
even further than that, because there's a district that runs right down the Sierras, right?
Yeah,
And then that runs you right into Imperial Valley, and then all of that stuff is red as hell.
yeah,
Very small numerical population, okay, but an outsized influence on what goes on statewide. So they have an influence on the way that conservatives in the urban and suburban areas see things, and
yeah.
that's the problem.
All right. So while we're on state politics, I want to sneak in this topic. two more topics. I want to talk about Alabama, but I also want to talk
Oh
about this.
man,
I want to talk about this one about this. Did you see the Senate debate on
on which
Monday?
issue?
Did you see the Senate debate on Monday
Uh,
on the
on
California?
immigration?
No. The California, the open seat or the seat for to replace
Oh,
Fine.
oh no, no, I didn't watch it.
Oh, well, interesting because it was basically the three Democrats, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, and uh, Barbara Lee, essentially beating up on Steve Garvey, which he deserves to be beaten up. But it was, but his idea was, oh, I'm fighting against career politicians. So it was Garvey against the career politicians against Garvey. But I thought it's a good side by side comparison of all the Democrats, since it's a mostly Democratic state, to see that wow, what a diversity of Democrats we have.
Yeah,
If you want to choose to see who would be Difei's replacement, I mean, Schiff was not bad. Establishment, sort of cut from the same cloth as Feinstein. Katie Porter and Schiff have raised the most money, and Katie Porter's a former consumer protection person. Uh, but
she's a
Bar-
lawyer and a professor.
yeah, but Barbara Lee, I thought was more down to earth and really connected, but she hasn't raised any money.
Yeah,
So
not
I
enough
feel
people have donated money.
I fear for Barbara Lee. Anyway, I thought maybe you'd see the debate. There's another debate coming up, I think in a week or so. But I'm gonna. It's an important one because right now, the fact that with Feinstein's death, California has like some of the worst senators in terms of seniority. Right? They've got LaFonza Butler, who is a one-termer. She's just there to serve out the term, no seniority. They've got Alex
Padilla.
Padilla, who has no seniority and really no power. So, I mean, we're talking essentially it's going to take some time to build up some power. It may be ceremonial, but I don't think, I mean, just looking at it from that perspective, Steve Garvey is not the guy. And so it really is, between the three Democrats. And it's a diverse, like I said, a diverse crowd between Schiff, Porter, and Barbara Lee. My heart's with Barbara Lee. I don't know if she has the money
Yeah, mine is too.
to make
Mine is
the.
too.
I mean, it's the top two. The top two make it to the general. So when they have the election in March and Super Tuesday, the top two, no matter what party. So it could be. I mean, and when I was in LA, all I saw were Schiff and Porter ads. I did not see any Barbara Lee ads.
No, she can't afford it. She's running a little bit of TV up here. I've seen some ads up here.
Yeah, it's a bad sign because this is her home base. All right, so let's talk about that Alabama situation. Um, the guy died. He was put to death. The Supreme Court did not save at the last minute Kenneth Eugene Smith, and so he was put to death by use of this execution method that some people say may amount to torture. I mean, it's the UN was against this. There have been people talking about how bad the use of nitrogen to create this hypoxia, and yet there are people who are waiting in line to say, okay, I'll take this. They're on death row, saying they want to die this way, and the guys in Alabama said, well, this is the test right here, and you see, we did it last night. Mr. Smith died, and they're saying that other states are waiting in the wings to see how well this goes because they want to use it too. So, what do you think there, Dan?
I think you need to watch the video.
The video of his death.
Yep, of his execution. Um, yeah, I'm sure some scientists and doctors are going to come forward and say, well, his convulsions and all of that stress and the writhing and it's it doesn't necessarily mean he was feeling pain. That's what they're going to say. They're going to
So
say,
you're talking about they took a public video. I have not seen the video,
yeah,
but it's pretty. I gather he's twitching and contorting and
yep. And the only reason they decided to do this is because the earlier method didn't work.
well, they couldn't find a vein.
Yeah,
They couldn't find. I mean, it happens when you're drawing blood. If you're giving blood, sometimes
that's
they're
right.
looking for a vein, they can't find it.
Yeah,
This might seem better, but it also because there's a lag. It's not like instantaneous. I'm pushing out a button and you're gone. You
yeah.
know.
Well, there's really the closest thing to that was believed to be electrocution, right? But that was pretty heinous too. And there are people who survived electrocution as well.
Yeah.
The sure method that California used for decades was gas.
Yeah.
The gas chamber. Um, it really is very sick. I believe in punishment, but I, I, the reason the capital punishment was restored in California was because people started killing public officials and cops. And so, even under Jerry Brown administration, um, popular culture, took over, and three strikes were out. Was very popular at the time, despite the fact that there was a lot of argument that minor felonies could result in accumulation of minor felonies could result in life imprisonment, and in fact it did in many instances, and um, it took literally a quiet revolt by judges, right, to turn that around and essentially condemn the notion that three strikes you're out was a good way to deter crime, right?
Mhm.
Particularly homicides. So people need to know that kidnapping, resulting in maiming or death, and murder, both second and especially first degree murder, was punishable by capital punishment. Well, I I suppose it might make you feel better that the person is totally taken out of any kind of circulation, including prison. But life in prison, as far as its effect on society, right, is the same as capital punishment outright, because the
Yeah.
person is no longer functional in the greater society. They're not free and out in the open. So, from a moral and ethical point of view, it accomplishes the same goal.
Yeah.
Uh,
What surprised me is that the jury wanted him to have this guy Smith, who was convicted of a knife murder for hire. I'm not sure what happened to the guy who hired him, but this was a murder committed in 1988, and the jury said that he should have life in prison without parole, and it was a judge that overruled it.
yeah, well, that's kind of Alabama
Yeah,
judiciary.
but since then there have been other laws that have that have said that you can't do that in other states, but how that did not have an impact on the overturning of the jury's decision here. They tried to kill him, you know, once in 2022,
Yeah.
and they failed because they couldn't find an IV line. Now they got him this time, and it's I haven't seen the video. I don't want to. I mean, have you ever been to like in San Quentin? Have you ever witnessed?
I have been there. I have not witnessed an execution, and nor would I be willing to witness an execution personally.
Yeah, I was I did not witness, but I've covered two executions. I was not picked to be in the room, but they have a reporter
That's
or
right.
some reporters who sit in and they witness, and there was one guy in Nevada who I was not chosen to witness, but I covered his conviction. And there was another guy in California.
What was the method of execution in
I
Nevada?
in Nevada, I believe it was gas. I believe it was gas. It might have been lethal injection, but it was in 20 when oh no, not 20 19, oh man. It was 19
Are
19
you suddenly becoming more age aware?
yeah. Oh my god. It was like 1980. Oh
Oh,
man.
whoa! Yeah, well,
Whoa.
that was the height
Yeah.
of the three strikes you're out kind of attitude. Was from the mid 70s through the
Yeah.
first Reagan 4 years, the first 4 years of Reagan. It was really popular, uh, But
He was killed in 19 executed in 1979 up in Carson City.
and the method of execution was
I'm trying to see how they kill him. Gas
yeah. There you go.
gas chamber. And yeah, because I remember, I'm just trying to picture you know, just trying to put together my memory. Yeah, it was gas, and I'm not sure who the other guy. The other guy in California was in 1995. Um, and it was a Thai guy. Do you remember that guy? A Thai guy in California,
No.
and he was an artist, and he was. I'm trying to find it on this list here. Because back in the 90s, and I know it's. Oh yeah, here it is. 1999, Asian American, and it doesn't say how he was killed.
I think it was lethal injection.
Yeah, but it was sad. I mean, I did not cover it. I was outside though, and I was not. Yeah, lethal injection. I was outside with the protesters. Did not go in, but I haven't witnessed an execution, but I have seen my dogs put down, and that is sad. You know, I have witnessed that, and I can't imagine is all that much different. Um, but anyway, so is this enough of a test? One case enough of a test for people to say, "Oh, now we know we should do it now. It works." But you're saying if you see the tape, doesn't look like it works.
If you have an interest in having the death penalty carried out in a humane manner, right, and you're willing to accept the death penalty, then the question is it humane, right? And I don't think it's humane. The way it's supposed to work. Obviously, if you're inhaling nitrogen, that's displacing oxygen, which means you're suffocating.
Yeah. And
So
you got a mask on, you can vomit, you can choke, any number of things can happen. I don't know how it was done with this guy yesterday. I've only seen print reports, but I guess I'll take a look to see. I mean, it's disgusting when you look at. I've seen a couple of people die um, by gas chamber and lethal injection. I don't see any writhing, but
right,
I guess in this one there was.
right.
Well, Dan,
On
I'll
that
have,
on that happy note,
yeah. Um, I just hope that other states take a second look and do more research. I mean, the UN is against it as a policy, and I'd like to see I mean, if you're going to have it, I mean, California has the death penalty, but it's been suspended, right?
Yeah.
So the only places where they regularly execute people, I mean, there are a lot of states, but the ones that you hear regular executions are places like Texas, Florida,
Yep.
places like that. Anyway, all right.
Yeah,
Well,
the former slave states.
we'll pray for his
That's
soul.
when people ask me about the Republican Party split and all the rest of that stuff, and I say, well, all you got to do is look for the former slave states and the ones that were questioning whether or not they should be slave or free.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
said like what? And I said, oh, like California.
yeah, yeah. You know,
They always think of Kansas, right? They think of Kansas because of all of the cowboy history that's associated with that period of the
yeah,
Civil War, and that they're not thinking about the Western states that were also considering going slave, right? So,
yeah. Well, all right. So, Dan, there's only one thing left to talk about, and that's a little bit about sports. Because the big game in the Bay Area, well, there are only 4 teams left now, the 49ers and the Packers, and, excuse me, not the Packers, 49ers and the Lions, and the Chiefs and
and
the
the
and the
Ravens,
Ravens. Yeah.
they
So
scare they scare me. The Ravens really scare me, man.
they're all I think they're all better teams than the 49ers.
I think
Or
I
they're
think
close.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the Chiefs aren't as good all around as the
Yeah.
49ers, but the 49ers haven't been playing at the top of their game
No,
the last several
yeah,
games.
they have. They're the 49ers aren't as good. They might outlast the Lions, but it's going to be close. If Samuel plays, it'll be a stronger game for the Niners. If he doesn't, it'll be close. And then I don't know, the Chiefs or the Ravens. I think the Ravens are really good, and the
They're
Chiefs.
badass. They're
Yeah,
consistently badass. I
yeah,
mean, and they've been playing really well against very tough teams the last 5 games.
yeah. Well, they
Regular
wiped out the
season.
49ers,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I'm just afraid that the 49ers won't be enough. I like to look at the sports as a distraction from all this other stuff. But I'd like my team to win. I like the Niners to win, but
No, you
you
got
know,
to be realistic too. I mean, we're if you're how do you define a true fan? Do you find a true fan as a person who says wrong or right, I'm there, without any criticism or concern whatsoever?
a true fan, a fanatic is irrational, and so if you can be an
Yeah.
irrational person about sports, and that's fine. But there's other things in life that you got to take care of, and you got to. I
Well, we're,
used,
we're we're being more or less objective and saying,
yeah,
okay, we got some problems with the way the teams have been playing,
yeah,
and the way certain individuals. We don't want to bring that up, right? But
yeah,
certain individuals have been in or out, and whether or not injury issues apply. But
mhm,
we're being realistic, and I think that's just our character. We try to be as objective as possible. We may disagree on some issues, or to the degree that we might differ by degree, on some issues. But
yeah.
when it comes down to it, we're straight up, and we try to be honest and
It's
clear.
just a game. It's sports, right? And
That's what it's
don't
supposed to be.
bet too much money. Don't bet at all. Just watch it, and get into the strategy of it. I like to think when I watch football. I like to think at the time when I played football. There was a small window of my life when I was able to play football, when everyone was about the same size as
Pop
me.
Warner, Pop Warner.
I played Pop Warner. I played a little bit of high school, and it was great. I had my moments, but
What position did you play at Lowell?
I was a halfback, running back.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah. I got beat up a lot,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it, no, actually, I didn't play. I didn't play a lot because I wouldn't cut my hair, and then finally everyone got hurt, and they couldn't. They didn't have any running backs, so they had to play me. I touched the ball first time, up the middle, 30 dive, 50 yards touchdown.
Wow. Good for
Yeah.
you.
And then I on the kickoff, I I made the tackle, and of course I tackled with my head and blacked out, and it
Whoa.
scared the hell out of me. It was just like, well, the lights went out. It
That's a
just,
concussion.
yeah, that was a concussion, and I just,
They didn't have concussion moments at the time.
they did not care about the high school football
How many
team.
fingers? How many fingers? Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. You
no,
said
no
two.
one,
It's fine.
no one questioned me. No one asked me. I
Yeah.
didn't cut my hair. That was all that was important to them, and I didn't play.
Jesus, and you're almost what? How much? Wait, when'd you graduate from law?
70,
70.
73.
Okay. Wow, man. Yeah, you're 7 years younger than me, and they still were after long hair. I got kicked out of class for long hair,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
that
if
was
you
like
were
in
long hair, forget it.
63, 64.
Long hair, man, you were considered worse than a hippie. How can you be worse than a hippie? I had long hair. And I look at pictures of myself. I look like a Native American guy. But I was playing, loved playing the game. So anyway, all right. So forget about football. Let's root for the Niners. I want to mention.
Yeah, but that's a cool story that you never told me before.
Oh
That
well,
was
I
cool.
thought I had. All right, in my next show. My next show, I'm doing my show in
Up
New
the
York
middle,
again.
and in. That's
Up
cool.
the middle. Yeah. I
Well,
here's another.
so
Yeah.
small backs, small stocky backs that were hard to tackle, but had strong, legs. That was a thing in
For
those
a
years.
while. For a
Yeah,
while. Yeah.
yeah. But
But
some people went stupid though. I mean, remember Mercury Morris?
oh yeah, he was good. They were, yeah, those small backs. Actually, there are still a lot of small backs like who are like
Yeah, they're
five
not
eight.
big.
Well, they're 5'6", 190, 5'7", 5'9",
Yeah, 5'8".
5'8".
Yeah, five. Yeah,
There's one guy 5'5", 5'6", 190. So anyway, hey,
yeah. Well,
one last thing. One last thing.
I
The
thought
Oscar.
are we going to talk about museum? Did we do museums yet, or no? We
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
done
We
museums.
talked about it. We talked about music.
Okay, how about Barbie?
Yeah, I wanted one last thing about Barbie. Now, was it a snub that Greta Gerwig as director and Margot Robbie were not nominated in their respective categories? Because a lot of people were upset that you know Barbie was being disrespected by the Academy. I didn't. Did you have any?
Yeah, I thought it was a snub. I don't particularly dig that format myself, but I like the idea. I like the theme.
Yeah,
And
I like. Yeah,
yeah, I like the idea. I like the theme. I thought it was done very well.
yeah. I
So
love
so
Barbie.
from a technical point of view, that thing was a thing of beauty. So to be able to harness fantasy and life like that, and then to add the tension around misogyny and everything, that stuff was really good. And so,
Yeah,
just from a creative point of view, they deserve to be included.
it
So
was it was a surrealistic kind
yeah,
of fantasy
yeah,
that that everyone can relate to, especially if you grew up in that in eras where Barbie had her stranglehold on the youth of the day.
that was a long time, man. There are at least two generations, right, that grew up on Barbie dolls.
Yeah, and I remember playing with Barbies uh, when I was at Channel 4 and I had to do a story about Barbie's birthday or something, and I had to play with Barbies. It was fun playing with Barbies and having her, posing her and putting her on, posing her for a shot. And it never dawned on me that, oh, I'm making a little TV report on Barbie. Never dawned on me that, oh, someone can actually do a major motion picture and make more money than has ever been made ever. But I saw the potential.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw, because I could like move her and animate her, and I wasn't thinking live action, but you know, I really love Greta Gerwig as a director.
Yeah,
I
it's
and
excellent.
as an actress,
It's excellent.
I liked her in Frances Ha
Yeah.
and her subsequent movies. Didn't like it as much as Frances Ha, but Barbie. This is really, as they say, tour de force, right? It's
Really
not real.
was. Yeah. I wanted an. Don't you want? Did they ever? They don't announce criteria, right?
I don't
When
know.
the
I don't know.
Academy,
I don't know. I think they just I don't
they
know what
never
they do.
announce criteria. I don't know one
They
time
send
when
it
they announce criteria.
they send it out to voting members. They tabulate it. They have the accountants count the votes, and who knows. But at least there was some diversity. Usually there's a question of diversity. Oh, not enough blacks, not enough Asians, not enough Latinos, not enough,
Yeah.
And it's now the question is back to just normal, the quality of the film and it was something snubbed. Hey, now have you seen Past Lives? That's the Korean American movie
Not yet.
that I've seen it several times. Uh, I like it. It's very moving and some of my favorite topics. Dealing with the past, dealing with old loves, bringing it forward into the new modern today period. Very touching, and it has that immigrant story, and these people who were friends and now they see each other years later, and it's different.
Right. Right.
And
No. We're waiting. We're waiting on watching it. I think it's on our list, and yeah,
yeah,
it's available. It's available for pay TV. So
yeah. Well, check it out. I know that I saw it in the spring last year. There was a real push for Barbie. Uh,
yeah,
maybe at the end of the summer. Not Barbie. There was a real push for Past Lives because critics loved it, and it's won a lot of awards, and it is catapulted into, you know, best film. I think it's too bad Beef is a television show
yeah.
because Beef Beef's done now. It won its awards, TV, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but here's the thing: you can't tell TV from movies, really. And I mean,
Not anymore.
it
The
used to be so obvious that
production value for TV is very strong. I don't know how long they can keep that up. Because Netflix was shrinking the number of movies that they were going to pay for.
yeah.
And they were doing the best. Netflix ended up doing better than all of the others,
Oh
including
yeah.
including Apple Plus.
Well, I mean, it costs too damn much to make
It
a
does.
movie, and
It does. I
they
wonder.
don't.
Didn't you wonder? I wondered, man, after watching some of those series like True Detective and stuff.
Yeah,
I said, wow, the production value is so
they
good.
don't have to be that. They don't have to be made that expensive. You could get a camera called the Red that gets you the great production values. I mean, I guess you could uh, shoot off your iPhone, but there's a camera called the Red,
Yeah, yeah,
and you can shoot it, and it you have the high standards. Get good audio. You can do anything, and a visionary or someone with a cinematic eye and a story to tell can do just as well as those big budget films. Because let's face it, the big budget films are the big budgets because people are getting paid.
that's
You
right.
know, most of the money is a salary. You know,
Well,
and
all you got to do is look at the credits, right?
yeah.
When the credits run like almost 10 minutes, you know
Well,
where the money's going. Yeah,
yeah, but those people who are on the eighth and ninth and 10th minute of the credits, they're not making as much as the people who are on the
sure.
first minute of the
Yeah,
credits.
yeah. Obviously, yeah.
But that's got to be the bulk right there. And
That's when you have to lean on your union.
yeah. Well, I just think that this is one of the things about the so-called digital revolution. You can make a movie. You can put it on, on the web. you may not get the audience, you may not get the money, but you can make it. You can put it on Vimeo, you can put it on YouTube, you can,
You can do some damn good work. You know.
yeah.
Um,
And you may not make millions, but I know depends on what game you want to play, you know?
yep.
So anyway, all right, Dan, thank you for being here on this Friday. We'll
It's
repeat
always a
this.
good time.
Yeah.
I really am very grateful for your asking me to be on.
Well, I'm glad like I said, this program, Emil Muck's Takeout, subtitled WDAAAT, what does an Asian American think? We come here, we talk about stuff, talk about the news from Donald Trump to Barbie, and who better to talk about this stuff? Who
I
better?
don't know.
Well,
I can think of several people, but they're beyond our pay range.
yeah, well, but I forgot to mention, it says Israel UN. There are a bunch of things happening today with Israel. The International Court, came out with a sort of a namby-pamby.
I have been asked several times with people on the phone and Facebook and all that. What do I think and why can the ICJ enforce? And I said they have to get the cooperation of police forces, either national police forces or Interpol, right, to investigate, and then if they where to locate where these people are, and then they got to go get them.
Yeah.
That's that's
Well,
it.
this is the thing. It's
It-
the reality. They can make all the statements that they didn't
That's right.
out against to force Israel
That's right.
to give up the hostages or stop the attacks on Hamas. But you know the practical is no movement really, right?
That's right.
And
That's right. And people don't understand that standing before the ICJ is initially voluntary,
yeah,
right? So
well,
if they don't want to appear, if they were going to charge Putin or Netanyahu with war crimes, or if they want to charge individually identified members of Hamas with war crimes, you got to go get them.
yeah. Well, hey, how about in the Philippines? They charged Duterte. They found him guilty, I think,
Right?
right?
They did, yeah.
And they and nothing, right?
Nothing, nothing. It's just it's
They,
show. It's a show, and that was one of the arguments that we made way back in the '70s against the UN. Is that and one of the reasons that people at the time were against admitting the PRC to the UN was that inevitably they would be on the Security Council, and we could look forward to them vetoing a lot of necessary actions throughout the world. And so that ends up, looking like at this point the U.S. Congress, right, where you got a minority of people wagging the dog, the tail's wagging the dog, and essentially it means not only inaction and a lack of productiveness by the House or the Senate, but both, and that as well slows down the entire governmental process all the way across the board,
yeah.
having global effect. So
But
it's bad. It's really bad
but
having a lack of enforcement.
it's a show that people want because it appears as if something's being done, right? It appears, I mean, because right now, uh, you see reports out of Ukraine, you see reports out of Hamas and Gaza, and it goes on, and it just grinds on, and people start losing. Um, they stop caring for about these stories. Unfortunately, it's
Well, they do. They do. It starts to wear thin all the way across the board. I saw a poll this morning that 35% of U.S. I don't know if they were voters or just Americans,
yeah,
but that they believe Israel is committing genocide.
yeah,
So that's really strong. I remember, I think 3 weeks ago, Fareed Zakaria took the issue on in his My Take segment, which is right how he opens up his show.
mm,
And he said, you got to be careful with the use of the word genocide. That's not necessarily what's happening. And he said that is really a careless abuse of the word to
Yeah.
describe what was happening in Palestine as genocide. Boy, is he wrong or what? I mean,
Well, but even look, even Noam Chomsky has said you got to watch out how you use genocide. It's almost like been devalued. There's got to be another way, though, to describe what Israel is doing in Gaza. And I'm not saying it falls short of genocide, but the term is so politically charged
that's
that
right.
it's been rendered meaningless. But there needs to be something more accurate to describe what's going on so people will care and people see what's going on and hopefully move their leaders, their elected leaders, to do something
Well,
because
when somebody is doing something that so clearly is beyond uh, uh, description by any other terms, I like what you're saying. I mean, we had to come up with a better term for that. But it's clear that if Israel continues with the style of warfare that they've been using, the methods that they've been using, they're heading towards genocide. That the toll on the civilian population is far greater than can be rationalized.
yeah,
Uh, in terms of winning over Hamas. In fact, what they're doing is guaranteeing that there's going to be a second and third generation
oh
of
yeah,
people who want the death of Israel.
yeah,
It's really ridiculous. What they're doing is
yeah.
uh, beyond inhumane. You know?
Well, the stories about the children caring for children, it's just it's so sad and so uh, it's it's avoidable. I mean, at this point, it's
Yeah.
avoidable. At
Well,
this point, something should happen. At this point, at least ceasefire makes sense. And
yes, it
so many
does.
people are,
Well,
mm,
Adam Schiff though is against the ceasefire,
yeah, I know.
so he's against the ceasefire, and I don't know what Porter's position is.
I think she's for one, but she doesn't think it. See, there's all these nuanced forms of ceasefire, just like there's nuanced forms of the term genocide. And it shows all the differences in the kind of progressive way of thinking. At least when you mention those Democrats who are running for the Senate in California, they they're all progressive to a point, right?
Right.
Schiff, Mr. Impeachment, Katie Porter, who is she's a progressive consumer fighter, and then Barbara Lee, who represents BIPOC communities like no other person on that platform,
That's
who's
right.
running, who's
Absolutely.
running for running for the Senate. So I know. So that's definitely a race to look at. We should look at it.
I think Barbara Lee is the truest of progressives. She has been absolutely consistent,
Yeah, I
over
agree.
her entire time in Congress. I mean, there have been times when she was absolutely singular
Oh
in
yeah,
her positions, like
oh,
Iran
Afghanistan,
and Iraq,
Iraq.
the Iraq War and all that. I mean, yeah,
She was the lone vote. I
yep,
mean, how do you like to be the lone voice of reason,
yep,
standing up against the authorization of use of military force? So anyway, all right. Well, listen. All right, now we've covered all the bases. Dan,
yep.
thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's always at the risk of having this sound sexual, it's mutually stimulating.
Ah, yes. Well, look, I have discovered the virtues of a vibrating heating pad. I've reached an age where a vibrating heating pad makes sense, and I used one for the first time last night. And I said, "Wow, where has this been in my life?" The vibrating
I don't
heating.
even. I'm not going to ask the placement.
Okay, all
I'm
right,
not
all
going
right.
to ask the placement question.
All right. There he goes. Daniel Phil Gonzalez. There he goes. My
Okay.
friend, California
I
State
think
University, Professor Emeritus, Asian American Studies. There he goes. Good guy. A lot of opinions. He's Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, one of the original strikers that brought on ethnic studies, and always happy when he shows up. Usually on Fridays. On Fridays he comes, and we play and we talk. If you missed any or all or part of this discussion that began about an hour and 40 minutes, go just use your finger and then go back and go fast forward and listen to it all weekend long, because we get into a lot of stuff. Starting off with that $80+ million that the court, or that a jury awarded E. Jean Carroll, the writer. I was rooting for E. Jean Carroll. How could you not root for E. Jean Carroll? As was pointed out so many times, this was not a trial, on whether or not Donald Trump was liable for sexual assault. He was found liable in an earlier trial. This was for the damages, both the compensatory and the punitive. And the jury came back and said, okay, $83 million. Pay up, Donald Trump. Pay it to E. Jean Carroll. I hope he is, because that's what accountability feels like. That is what accountability feels like. And poor E. Jean Carroll, talking about how that whole episode affected her life. She inherited a gun from her father. She sleeps next to it. She's scared. She's 80 years old. Cut out from a lot of professional and personal type of opportunities because of what happened, what she said, the defamation of Trump, which was proven, and the defamation over and above the actual sexual assault. But it all comes together, and she gets the damages. $83 million. It's a lot. Anyway, so listen to the show. Listen all weekend. Emil Guillermo here. You can find us on, this is the secret podcast. I mean, Emil Amok's Takeout, if you go to wherever we podcast, you won't find this show. You find it only on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. You find it on Facebook at emilguillermo.media or at fb.com/emilguillermo.media, or on Twitter, X, at Emil Amok, EMIL-AMOK. We put it on there. You can watch it. You can listen to it like radio. It's like old-time talk radio. Talking about stuff. So catch it. Show 642, Emil Amok's Takeout. I just want to mention, it's worth mentioning, I'm doing my show. This is a show without punchlines. Or this is a show where you just talk about real things, talk about things that are important to me. But it all is in, it's in, I'm doing these other shows. I do these one-man shows, these solo shows where I get up on stage and I talk about stories. I tell stories about things. So I'm at the Rogue Festival in Fresno, March 2nd, 2 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., 2 shows. Sunday, March 3rd, 2 p.m., and Thursday, March 7th at 5:30 p.m. So please check that out, the Rogue Festival in Fresno. I'm also in New York City, April 5th, Friday, April 5th, 9:50, odd times. Monday, April 8th at 8:10, Saturday, April 13th, 5:20, Friday, April 19th at 8:10, and Sunday, April 21st at 5:20. That's my appearances at the New York City Fringe, the NYCF. And then there's the Orlando Fringe in May. So that's my schedule coming up. So catch that if you want to see, this guy, he talks online, but he tells stories too. On stage, live? Yes, live. Catch it. And of course, I'll fill you in with stuff here on Emil Amok's Takeout. We like to end with a little meditation, because meditation helps, especially the self-love, the self-worth, because we're all about self-help. We're all about how to, about these talking therapies to help us through all these things that happen to us. And a lot of things happen to us. So we're just self-love, right? But before you offer it to yourself, you offer it to others. It comes back. You feel better. Metta, the meta form of meditation, METTA. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kita.